When people think about the educational achievement gap, they often become transfixed by the indication of test scores. And what I'd like to submit to you, there's another way to think about the achievement gap that, for me, is much more personally profound, because I think about it as a father. And as a dad, I have dreams and aspirations for my own children. I want them to sort of move forward in their life and have choices and opportunity and be able to sort of find work that's meaningful and important to them. And I also understand that in our global and complicated society that the pathway to those types of choices and options is going to probably run through them being able to negotiate college and have a 4-year degree. And this is where we begin to think about the achievement gap, because in reality, only about 30% of Americans have bachelor's degrees. If you come from a family where your family earns less than $35,000 a year, the chances of getting a bachelor's degree are about 1 in 17. Another way to think about this achievement gap is not just to think about what's happening within our country, but to think about the stretch, the global expanse. And there's a very well-done test called the Program in International Standards and Assessment. And what it does is it measures the way that our young people think about real-life application and problems, in particular around science, math, and writing. There are 25 of what are called comparison countries. And in those comparison countries, we presently rank right about 20th out of those 25 countries. It used to be that we were #1 in terms of high school graduation rates and college completion rates. We've fallen to about 14th in the last 15 years. So these are also really important indicators of this educational crisis that we're trying to work through as a country. In thinking about where we need to go from here, reformers, scholars have been able to identify 3 pathways that have been successful in different ways. And I'd like to do is talk about each one. The first are those who say, well, we have this achievement gap both internationally and at home, and the only way that we're going to sort of tangle with this is by sort of tackling the sort of fundamentals of society. We need to sort of address jobs, we need to address healthcare, we need to address all those sort of fundamental social institutions that surround a family, that surround a community, and make things happen. And then until we address those fundamental inequities, then any kind of improvement in the academic arena is not going to happen. A second school of thought says we are always going to have these inequities that are fundamental to a really complicated and large, diverse, multicultural society like ours. And that what we can't do is we can't, as educators, wring our hands about what's not being done around housing or around health. But what we have to do is we have to be relentlessly focused on what we can do within the context of schools. And there's been a sort of a reform movement that's gone on, that's been increasingly successful at taking young people and helping them sort of move through their demographic destiny in more forceful ways. The single most important in-school factor anticipating educational achievement amongst young people has to do with the quality of the teacher. So what these organizations do is they recruit really talented people and they bring them into their enterprise. They provide them with fundamental training, ongoing professional development, and those types of schools have begun to show tremendous growth and gains in relationship to the kinds of outcomes that young people are going to stretch for options and chances in their life. A third approach that is picking up momentum has to do with the 20/80 dilemma. The 20/80 dilemma is quite fascinating because it involves the fact that young people spend only about 20% of their time in school and 80% in the other circles of their life, family, neighborhood, and other types of institutions. And yet schools believe that they are a mighty enough intervention in the life of young people to change life trajectories. And so the reformers that are working in this third initiative, which I call the Initiative for Out of School Time, are committed to creating settings that are alluring to young people and provide intense opportunity to build the kinds of intellectual capacities and thoughts and experiences that are necessary for success in school and beyond. So a great example of these is an organization called Street Squash. And Street Squash is part of a network of urban squash programs. And they have a $14 million building, 9 beautiful squash courts that would give the squash courts at Smith a run for their money. But when you go and spend some time there, what you quickly learn is that squash squash is not the primary purpose for it being there. They want young people to get involved in a program, and once they're in that program, they'll, yes, play squash, but more importantly, what they do is they get put into a series of programs that provide academic tutoring, help them check in on what's going on in school, take them on trips where they play tournaments all across the Ivy League colleges so that they get and expand their horizons and sort of understand what's possible in their life. And so these programs are very, very innovative in that they understand that schools can't do it alone, but schools need support. And these programs are trying to work in concert, in complement to the important work that schools are doing right now. In this world where so much is going to rest on can you write, can you read, can you think, can you communicate, can you connect, can you take complicated projects and make them come together, so much rests on how well we can work with these young people and help them develop the repertoire of skills, capacities, and abilities that are going to be necessary for them to try and forge the life that they want, the life their parents want for them, and the life that we need as a civic community.